Welcome back to Stories by Prosper. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and get ready for another story you won't forget. Let's dive back to the story. Damien Carter sat in his sleek, glass-paneled office overlooking the city, the sunset painting the skyline in fiery orange and crimson. His phone vibrated on the mahogany desk, and when he glanced at the screen, he saw the final divorce papers he had sent to Olivia Grant. A cold smile curved on his lips. He had never loved her, and in his eyes, she had been nothing more than an inconvenient obstacle to life he wanted, a life with someone who truly fulfilled his ambitions. Helen Cole, his mistress, had faked a pregnancy for months, playing the role of the devoted woman who would give him an heir. Damien had fallen for her without hesitation, serving Olivia divorce papers with an icy detachment, accusing her of barrenness, and cutting her out of his life with the ruthlessness only wealth and power could buy. He felt exhilarated, imagining the child Helen would supposedly bring into the world, oblivious to the fact that fate had other plans waiting silently in the wings. That night, he toasted alone in his office, confident that he had won and Olivia had lost everything. Olivia Grant, on the other hand, sat in the modest apartment she had rented after the divorce, her hands trembling as she read the legal document for the last time. The word barren burned in her chest, though it was far from the truth. Tears streamed down her face, not because of humiliation alone, but because she knew her life had been shattered by someone she had once loved deeply. She thought of Damien, cold, arrogant, and calculating, and wondered if the man she once trusted could ever feel regret. The apartment felt emptier than ever, but Olivia's resolve hardened amidst the pain. She had discovered shortly after the divorce that she was pregnant, a secret she would guard with her life. This child, her son Leo, would grow in love and safety, untouched by Damien's cruelty. She vowed silently that no matter what obstacles lay ahead, she would provide him with a life filled with warmth, affection, and stability, even if it meant building everything from scratch. Damien couldn't contain his excitement as he planned the life he imagined with Helen. The idea of fatherhood consumed him, or at least the illusion of it. He pictured lavish nurseries, grand parties, and public appearances announcing his soon-to-arrive heir. He even bragged to his business associates about finally securing the legacy he had always desired. Damien ignored the faint whispers in his mind, the tiny, nagging doubt that Helen's happiness might not be entirely genuine. He was too absorbed in his own delight, dismissing her earlier inconsistencies as trivial. With Olivia out of the picture, he felt unchallenged, untouchable, and certain that the future was just a mold shaped by wealth and status. Helen, ever the actress, played her part flawlessly, smiling warmly at Damien while secretly securing her own advantage. Damien was blind to her subtle manipulations, convinced that his long-awaited dream was finally coming true. Every gesture she made, every word she whispered, only tightened his confidence, feeding his arrogance and a sense of triumph over Olivia's departure. Meanwhile, Olivia felt a different kind of happiness blossoming quietly within her. Her pregnancy was unexpected, but it became her secret source of hope. She whispered to her unborn child at night, sharing dreams of a future filled with love, resilience, and opportunity. Each kick from Leo reminded her the bond she would always cherish, a bond Damien could never sever. She began researching childcare, budgeting carefully, and preparing for life as a single mother. Even though the world seemed cold and unfair, Olivia discovered an inner strength she hadn't known she possessed. She refused to let anger consume her. Instead, she nurtured patience, courage, and determination. This child would know a mother's unwavering love, and Olivia promised herself that no man's cruelty would define her son's future. In her heart, she felt the first sparks of a new beginning, one built on perseverance and quiet joy, hidden from Damien's blinding arrogance. 5 months later, Olivia's strength and determination bore fruit. She had secured a job at a major airline company, working as an administrative assistant, though the pay was modest compared to Damien's wealth. The satisfaction providing for herself and preparing a life for Leo filled her with pride. She often thought of Damien's callous words and actions, but instead of letting them consume her, she channeled her anger into hard work and ambition. She gained a reputation among her colleagues as reliable, intelligent, and warm-hearted, a sharp contrast to her image in Damien's world. Olivia's days were long, her nights filled with baby bottles and lullabies, but she felt purpose fulfillment in every small success. She realized that her life no longer depended on a man's approval, and every milestone she achieved for Leo felt like quiet revenge against the cruelty of her past. Damien, in the meantime, was preparing for the arrival of Helen's child with extravagant zeal. He held meetings with interior designers for the nursery, scheduled photo shoots to announce the pregnancy to select elites, and lavished gifts upon Helen, believing he had finally secured a family he had always wanted. His arrogance had blinded him to the obvious. Helen's motivations were not entirely selfless. As the months passed, Damien's obsession with legacy grew. Yet a subtle unease occasionally crept into his mind, a fleeting suspicion that everything might not be as perfect as he imagined. But he quickly dismissed it, telling himself that trust and wealth ensured control. He could not fathom that Olivia, the woman he had discarded, carried a child who would one day be the living embodiment of what he had lost. Helen's facade began to crack under the pressure of maintaining Damien's trust. Behind closed doors, she confided in her closest friend that she had no intentions of giving Damien a biological child. The months of fake belly photos, staged doctor appointments, and whispered conversations had been a carefully orchestrated plan to secure financial stability and manipulate Damien's emotions. She had played the perfect role, and Damien had been none the wiser, intoxicated by the thought of impending fatherhood. Helen's cunning knew no bounds. She smiled when Damien spoke of the future, all the while knowing he was building dreams on a foundation of lies. Damien, blinded by desire and expectation, never noticed the subtle discrepancies, the offhand comment, the vague medical report, the fleeting glances Helen threw when he wasn't looking. In his world, wealth and influence sufficed to control everything, including the truth, and Helen's deception thrived in that blind spot. Olivia, in contrast, nurtured her secret with quiet pride. Every movement of Leo, inside her womb, strengthened her resolve. She imagined the day she would meet him, hold him, and watch him grow without the toxic shadow of Damien's arrogance. She decorated a small nursery in her apartment, painted walls soft pastel shades, and whispered nightly affirmations to Leo. Each day was a battle, balancing work, preparing for the baby, and preserving hope. Unlike Damien, who saw control and domination, Olivia focused on love, resilience, and the future she was quietly building. She knew that one day, the truth would surface in ways Damien could never anticipate, and when it did, she would be ready. Damien's life took a sudden, unforeseen turn when he was involved in a severe car accident on a rainy night. His world of control and power seemed to slip away in an instant as the emergency responders whisked him to the hospital. Weeks of pain, surgeries, and complications followed, leaving him partially immobile and unable to father children due to the severity of his injuries. His arrogance, which once shielded him from the world's vulnerabilities, could not protect him now. Helen, ever calculating, had already secured her path, giving birth to a child that, unbeknownst to Damien, was not his. Damien's fantasy of a perfect legacy crumbled as a truth, invisible to him, began shaping a reality far harsher than anything he could have imagined. The irony of the situation gnawed at the edges of his mind, though he remained ignorant of the full betrayal that had quietly taken root around him. Meanwhile, Olivia's life had entered a period of stability and hope. She had given birth to Leo, a beautiful, vibrant child who bore an uncanny resemblance to Damien, though he would never know it. With Ethan Black's introduction into her professional life, a new chapter began unfolding. Ethan, captivated by Olivia's strength, intelligence, and warmth, quickly grew fond of Leo and embraced the child as his own. Olivia, protective and cautious, allowed herself a tentative hope that love could return to her life. Not the toxic love of Damien, but a gentle, steady partnership grounded in respect, admiration, and care. She no longer needed validation from Damien. She had everything she truly required in her child and the man who genuinely loved her. Ethan Black, CEO of the airline company where Olivia worked, was a man whose charm and insight captivated everyone he met. When he first noticed Olivia, her determination and grace amid challenges struck him deeply. Her professionalism, coupled with her nurturing nature toward Leo, created an aura he could not ignore. He approached her cautiously, respecting her past but making his admiration clear through subtle gestures, coffee deliveries, friendly conversations, and sincere compliments. Olivia, initially hesitant, found herself drawn to his warmth and genuine care. For the first time in years, she experienced a sense of normalcy and trust, free from the shadows of Damien's cruelty. Ethan's presence gave her hope that life could be beautiful again, and that love could exist without manipulation or betrayal. Damien, still reeling from the accident, sank deeper into despair as he discovered the limitations imposed by his injuries. His once formidable control over his life and body had been shattered, leaving him impotent and bitter. He clung desperately to Helen, and the child he believed was his. Unaware of the deception she had orchestrated, every smile Helen gave him now carried a hollow weight, and Damien's confidence wavered. Despite his immense wealth, he realized with growing terror that money could not heal him, could not restore what he had lost, and could not prevent the emptiness that now accompanied his every day. He began to feel the first seeds of regret, though the full realization of his mistakes would come later, in a confrontation he never imagined. Months passed, and the truth about Helen's child surfaced in a dramatic, inescapable way. Genetic tests and medical revelations revealed the devastating fact that the child she bore was not Damien's. His heart, already wounded by the accident, shattered under the weight of betrayal and foolish trust. Helen, confronted by Damien's fury, tried to weave excuses, but the damage had been done. Damien, humiliated and enraged, expelled her from his life, but the void she left could not be filled by anger alone. His dreams of legacy and control had vanished, replaced by the stark, bitter reality that life did not bend to his whims, no matter the wealth or power he commanded. In the silence that followed, Damien's mind drifted relentlessly back to Olivia and the son he had abandoned, the sense of what could have been gnawed at him with every passing day, though he remained unaware that fate would soon bring him face to face with the truth he had long ignored. Meanwhile, Olivia thrived in the life she had painstakingly built. Leo grew healthy, intelligent, and charming, showing early signs of curiosity and resilience. Ethan's love and devotion gave her strength, and she finally experienced the stability she had craved. Her career advanced, her family life flourished, and the past began to feel like a distant shadow. Yet, in quiet moments, she remembered Damien, not with hatred, but with the steady knowledge that the past could not dictate her future. She focused on building joy, laughter, and love for Leo, creating a household where warmth, security, and happiness were constants. Olivia had become a woman transformed, no longer defined by loss or bitterness, but by courage, intelligence, and the love she cultivated around her. Damien's fortune remained vast, yet it no longer brought him satisfaction. The luxuries that once thrilled him, the yachts, the mansions, the designer clothes, fell hollow in the absence of legacy and love. Power, which had been his greatest currency, now seemed meaningless, for he had lost control over the one thing he valued most, fatherhood. Loneliness became his constant companion, and every mirror reflected not a triumphant man, but one diminished by pride, mistakes, and missed opportunities. He had aimed to secure happiness through manipulation and wealth, but the irony was cruel. His riches could not buy what truly mattered. Damien began to feel the first tendrils of humility creep into his soul, though pride and bitterness still battled against it. In the silence of his penthouse, he could hear the echoes of the life he had thrown away, and his regret, once distant and abstract, became a living, breathing force that haunted him daily. Olivia, meanwhile, enjoyed the serenity of family life. Ethan and Leo were constants in her world, pillars of support and sources of laughter. Her modest apartment, once a symbol of struggle, had become a haven of love and stability. She marveled at how far she had come, from heartbroken divorcee to mother and professional thriving in her own right. Every achievement, no matter how small, reinforced the belief that resilience and integrity triumph over cruelty and deception. Olivia's life was full, not in wealth or prestige, but in the richness of love, trust, and accomplishment. She understood deeply that happiness was not a product of wealth, but the connections, care, and choices one nurtures over time. Damien, preparing for an overseas surgery that might allow him to walk again, found himself at the bustling international airport. Crowds moved around him, voices mingling with announcements, luggage rolling across tiles. His heart pounded, not from excitement, but from a sense of anticipation he could not fully articulate. He had no idea that destiny was waiting in the form of the very woman he had discarded years ago. Olivia, traveling with Ethan and little Leo, maneuvered through the airport with grace, unaware that her past and present were about to collide in ways that would leave Damien speechless. Leo, oblivious of the tension that would soon erupt, chattered happily, holding Ethan's hand tightly. The air was thick with the scent of possibilities and the approaching storm of revelation. Damien wheeled himself through the terminal, the last thing he expected awaiting him just beyond the crowd. Olivia's senses were attuned to the present, focused on her son and husband. She had spent years building this life, carefully separating herself from the past that Damien represented. Yet, fate had a way of bridging gaps even the most careful planning could not prevent. As she rounded a corner, she froze for a brief moment, her instincts alerting her to the familiar presence of someone she had hoped never to see again. Her heart raced, not in fear, but in measured anticipation. Leo tugged at her hand, sensing her hesitation, while Ethan's protective gaze scanned the terminal. In that split second, past, present, and future converged, setting the stage for a confrontation that would define the next chapter of all their lives. Damien's eyes locked onto a small boy holding Olivia's hand. The resemblance was uncanny, dark, intelligent eyes, a smile that mirrored his own. Time seemed to freeze, the bustling airport fading into the background. Questions, emotions, and regrets collided in his mind as he wheeled closer, heart hammering in disbelief. Could this child be the son he never knew? Every instinct screamed that he had been absent when he should have been present, that life had played a cruel trick, leaving him with nothing but wealth and bitterness. Damien's breath caught as Olivia turned, her eyes meeting his. She was radiant, confident, and entirely untouchable by the man who had once discarded her. The child, Leo, looked up and smiled innocently, oblivious to the storm of emotion he had inadvertently triggered in the man who could have been his father. Olivia, steady and composed, recognized Damien instantly. She had anticipated this moment in fleeting thoughts over the years, yet nothing prepared her for the intensity of his presence. Damien's expression, a mixture of shock, regret, and disbelief, confirmed her worst suspicions. He had no idea the child's identity. Her lips curved into a calm, controlled smile as she introduced Leo subtly through gestures and conversation, careful not to reveal too much at once. Ethan, sensing the tension, positioned himself protectively beside Olivia, ready to shield his family if necessary. Damien's world tilted, the illusion of control slipping as he realized that wealth and status could not undo the years he had squandered. This encounter would mark the beginning of reckoning, revelation, and a confrontation that Damien would never forget. Damien's wheelchair came to a stop mere meters from Olivia and Leo. He studied the boy carefully, the striking resemblance to himself undeniable. Every detail, the shape of his eyes, the curve of his smile, the tiny gestures, screamed truth, yet he dared not believe immediately. Olivia, sensing his hesitation, met his gaze calmly. She had rehearsed this moment in her mind countless times, yet the reality of his presence brought a flush of anticipation she could not hide. Damien's lips parted, but no words emerged. He had expected triumphs, luxuries, even revenge, but nothing in his experiences could prepare him for the quiet authority in Olivia's posture or the way Leo looked up at him with a shy but trusting smile. Olivia's heart raced, not from fear, but from the thrill of knowing she held the power in this encounter. Damien had walked, or rather wheeled, into a world that no longer depended on him. She introduced Leo casually, letting the child's laughter and innocence speak before her words did. Ethan, sensing the tension, subtly guided Leo, ensuring Damien could not overstep. The air between them vibrated with unspoken truths. Damien's long-lost fatherhood, Helen's betrayal, and Olivia's triumph in raising a child he never knew. Damien swallowed hard, emotion threatening to overwhelm him, as the full weight of his past mistakes pressed down, crushing his ego, wealth, and pride. Damien's voice finally broke the silence, strained and trembling. Olivia, this child, he's mine? His words lacked conviction, as if saying them aloud might make the truth vanish. Olivia, poised and resolute, nodded slowly, carefully measuring her tone. She did not need to berate him or justify herself. The facts spoke louder than anger ever could. Damien's mind raced, piecing together years of absence, bitterness, and regret. He had chased illusions with Helen, while unknowingly abandoning the only real legacy he could have had. Helplessness and shame consumed him, mingling with disbelief. Every plan, every scheme manipulation, now seemed laughably insignificant in the shadow of reality. Olivia, feeling the balance of power shift in her favor, held Damien's gaze steadily. Yes, Damien, he's your son, but he is also mine, and he is loved by a father who's been there since day one. Her words were gentle yet resolute, emphasizing her new life with Ethan. Damien's ego, once untouchable, crumbled. He realized too late that wealth, control, and arrogance could not replace the human bonds he had forsaken. For the first time, he confronted the consequences of his callousness, and the painful truth sank in. He had lost not just a child, but happiness itself. Olivia's calm dignity only magnified his torment, leaving him to wrestle with emotions he could not control. As the minutes ticked by, Damien replayed the years in his mind. Helen's betrayal, his divorce of Olivia, the child he never knew, and the accident that left him impotent. He understood that every selfish choice had compounded into this moment of humiliation and regret. His wealth, once a shield, felt meaningless. He had manipulated, controlled, and hurt, believing that the world would bend to his whims, only to be confronted with an unyielding reality. He had nothing of real value. He had sacrificed love for illusion, and now the only proof of what he lost smiled innocently at him, holding Olivia's hand. The gravity of his impotence and the betrayal by Helen crushed the remnants of his pride. Olivia remained calm, her expression serene yet unyielding. She had prepared for this moment mentally, but Damien's anguish was more satisfying than she could have imagined. She knew she had the upper hand, not because of wealth, but because she had lived with integrity, raised Leo with love, and built a life independent of Damien's cruelty. Her eyes met his, unwavering, and she quietly asserted that the past could not dictate her present or future. Damien, humbled and broken, had no argument, no leverage, and no right to demand forgiveness. Every plan he had made for control had failed spectacularly. It was a lesson in powerlessness, a punishment he could neither evade nor reverse. Ethan stepped subtly closer, his presence a reminder that Olivia was no longer the vulnerable woman Damien had once controlled. The tension between the three adults was palpable, but Ethan's steady gaze and calm confidence created an invisible shield around Olivia and Leo. Damien, already emotionally disarmed, now faced the uncomfortable truth that his wealth and status meant nothing against genuine love and loyalty. Ethan's gentle smile toward Leo and his respectful, unwavering attention to Olivia underscored the life Damien had forsaken, the bond he could never replace. Every detail. Ethan's hand on Leo's shoulder, the quiet understanding in Olivia's eyes, was a stark contrast to Damien's cold ambition and Helen's deceit. Olivia felt a sense of peace wash over her. She had feared this confrontation might ignite anger or regret. Yet Ethan's presence kept the interaction dignified and controlled. She realized that this meeting was not just about revealing truths to Damien. It was about affirming the life she had built, the happiness she had cultivated, and the love she had nurtured with Ethan and Leo. Damien's broken, desperate eyes met hers, but there was no room for pity or reconciliation. Olivia's journey had led her to freedom and fulfillment, and this was a final, undeniable confirmation that she had not only survived her past, but had thrived beyond it. Damien's heart pounded with an unbearable mixture of longing, shame, and disbelief. Every memory of Olivia, the laughter they once shared, the arguments, the love he never felt, collided with the painful reality that she had built a happy life without him. His mind raced, imagining what could have been if he had chosen differently. He had been arrogant, cruel, and blind, chasing illusions while reality slipped silently away. Now, confronted with Leo's innocent face, Damien realized that wealth, power, and revenge could never substitute for the genuine love he had lost. The knowledge that he could never father another child, that Helen's deceit had left him empty-handed, consumed him. Olivia watched quietly, her expression composed yet unyielding. She understood his anguish, but she felt no pity. Leo laughed and played at her feet, unaware of the storm of regret swirling around his biological father. Olivia's life was complete in ways Damien could not disrupt. Her child was safe, loved, and thriving. Her new husband was devoted and kind, and she had reclaimed her dignity. Damien, wealthy but hollow, faced a stark contrast between illusion and reality. Every material possession he owned could not replace the happiness Olivia now embodied, a truth that stung far deeper than any financial loss ever could. Damien reached out hesitantly, almost instinctively, as if touching Leo might bridge the gap of 5 years, but Olivia's firm hand gently stopped him. "Damien, it's too late," she said softly but resolutely. "I forgave you in my heart long ago, but I will never allow the past to dictate Leo's life or mine." Her words struck Damien harder than any accusation or confrontation could. He realized that his wealth, his apologies, and his regret could not reverse the choices he had made. Olivia had rebuilt herself and her family without him, thriving in ways he could never influence. Damien's power was meaningless against the walls she had built for love, protection, and independence. Leo looked up at him, innocent and trusting, unaware of the storm his father carried. Damien's chest tightened, the enormity of his mistakes overwhelming him. He had lost not just Olivia's trust, but the opportunity to share in the life of a child who was undeniably his own. Helen's deception, his arrogance, and his choices had converged to leave him impotent, powerless, and consumed by regret. Olivia, calm and graceful, represented everything Damien had forsaken: strength, love, and the beauty of a life lived fully despite betrayal. Damien understood, perhaps too late, that his legacy would not be measured by wealth or power, but by the connections he had destroyed and failed to nurture. The airport crowd moved around them obliviously, but Damien felt every gaze as a judgment on his failures. His fortune, cars, mansions, and business empire now seemed trivial in comparison to the life Olivia had cultivated. He had sought happiness through manipulation and deceit, only to be left with isolation, impotence, and bitter reflection. Helen's betrayal had been the final confirmation that his plans were fragile and superficial. Damien's self-image, once fortified by wealth and ego, crumbled under the undeniable reality of Olivia's triumph. In that moment, he recognized the emptiness that material success could not fill, the absence of love, trust, and familial bonds that could never be reclaimed. Olivia, steady and unshaken, guided Leo with care and affection. She had anticipated Damien's arrival, yet the sight of his broken demeanor reaffirmed the justice of her life's choices. Ethan's presence was reassuring, a subtle but potent reminder that Olivia no longer needed Damien's validation or recognition. Leo laughed, his joy innocent and untethered by the complexities of adult deceit. Olivia smiled gently, aware that Damien's torment was not her responsibility, but the natural consequence of his arrogance. For the first time in years, she felt fully vindicated, not through revenge, but through fulfillment of her own happiness and the thriving life of her child. Damien's voice cracked as he attempted to reach out one last time. "Olivia, please, I can change. I can be a father to him. I know I lost so much, but Olivia cut him off with a firm, unwavering gaze. "No, Damien, you lost your chance years ago. This is our life now, and you are no longer part of it." His wealth, apologies, and shattered ego could not pierce the wall she had built. Damien understood, with agonizing clarity, that his mistakes were permanent, his regrets irreversible, and that the life he had dreamed of, fatherhood, love, happiness, was gone beyond repair. Ethan tightened his protective hold on Leo, offering quiet reassurance to Olivia. The airport, bustling with strangers, felt like a stage where Damien faced the ultimate reckoning, the collision of arrogance and reality, of greed and love, of wealth and true happiness. Damien's knees trembled in the wheelchair as he absorbed the finality of Olivia's words. He had all he had ever wanted materially, yet it meant nothing. Olivia's calm dignity, her fulfilled life, and the innocent laughter of Leo struck him with unbearable clarity. He was powerless to reclaim what mattered most, left with nothing but the bitter taste of regret. Damien wheeled himself away, his mind a whirlwind of sorrow and despair. Every glance backward at Olivia and Leo intensified the pain of lost opportunities. He realized that he had spent his life chasing illusions, betraying love, and believing wealth could replace genuine human connections. The airport, once a place of transit and departure, now symbolized the distance between what he had and what he would never have. Damien's fortune, influence, and titles meant nothing against the permanence of love and integrity. He had been humbled by life's cruel irony, left to confront the stark emptiness of a legacy he had squandered. Olivia watched silently as Damien disappeared into the crowd, her heart steady and her mind clear. She had survived his cruelty, overcome heartbreak, and built a life filled with love, security, and purpose. Ethan smiled gently, whispering encouragement to Leo, who remained blissfully unaware of the storm surrounding him. Olivia's gaze followed Damien briefly, but she knew her life no longer included him. In that moment, she felt unshakable peace, knowing that her family, her son, and her new love were everything she had fought for. Damien's departure was a final confirmation that her strength, resilience, and determination had carried her through every trial, leaving her victorious, fulfilled, and free. Olivia held Leo close as she and Ethan walked toward the boarding gate, the boy giggling and asking questions about the airplane. Life had transformed into something beautiful, grounded in love, trust, and shared dreams. Every obstacle, every heartbreak, every betrayal had led her to this moment of quiet triumph. Damien's past, wealth, and arrogance were now irrelevant, relics of a life she had consciously left behind. Olivia smiled at Ethan, who returned her glance with warmth and devotion. Together, they represented a family built on respect, choice, and genuine affection, the antithesis of the cold, manipulative world Damien had inhabited. Leo laughed as he played with his father, Ethan, and Olivia felt the fullness of life around her. She had won, not through revenge or malice, But through resilience, patience, and unwavering love, Damien, wealthy but broken, had been left with lessons far too late, while Olivia, humble and strong, embraced joy, purpose, and hope. The airport faded behind them as they boarded the plane, ready to continue a life defined by love, laughter, and new beginnings. In every glance, every touch, and every word, Olivia knew that she had triumphed over the past, creating a future no man could ever take away. That's the end of the story. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more interesting stories like this. Stay tuned.